Good evening. Welcome to Delta Talks, Community Conversation Series. Know your office, know your candidates. I am Jacqueline Tyson, President of the Rochester Alumnae Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Our focus today is to educate, prepare, and mobilize the community to vote on November 3rd, 2020. Before we get started, I'd like to share a little history about our organization. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, founded 107 years ago at Howard University, is a nonpartisan organization of college-educated women committed to public service with a primary focus on the Black community. The Rochester Alumnae Chapter, chartered in 1965, serves Greater Rochester with programs that reflect a 5-point programmatic thrust, including economic development, educational development, international awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and political awareness and involvement. We sponsor social action activities that include voter registration, education, and mobilization. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Know the Office, Know the Candidate segment of Delta Talks. I'm Dr. Charmaine Cohen, and with me are my fellow members of the Social Action Committee, Dr. Donna Harris, Mrs. Dorset Watson, Dr. Gail Harrison, Mrs. Carnethia Melson, Ms. Jackie McClaney, Ms. Francine Scott, Ms. Tanya Dickerson, and Dr. Ruth Scott. Let's get started. Again, this segment is Know the Office, Know the Candidate. We will briefly talk about each political office that are on the ballot for our community, and we will show you the candidates for those offices. Before we move into that, I'll ask Ms. McClaney if she would first talk a little bit about how we should select a candidate for any office. We have a duty to vote as citizens. We should be intentional and informed when we select a candidate. Ms. McClaney?
That is right. We should be informed when voting. So historically and customarily, citizens vote solely by party or even by name recognition. As a citizen, we have a duty to vote for a candidate who has a platform that will meet our needs and our community needs. We should take the time to understand what the candidate is proposing if they are elected. You also should probably check their track record to see what they have done already for the community.
Okay, now that sort of reminds me of the old statement, what have you done for me lately? But thank you. Those were very good points on how we should choose a candidate to vote for. Allow me now to ask Dr. Harris if she would highlight the many political parties we often hear about, but may not be clear on what they stand for.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Donna Harris, the Upstate New York Social Action Coordinator, and I will present on the political parties that are recognized in the United States and in New York. Most voters are very familiar with the two major political parties. The Democratic Party, founded in 1828, supports issues such as environmental protection, universal health care, organized labor, marijuana legislation, and abortion rights. The Republican Party, founded in 1854, supports lower taxes, capitalism, immigration restrictions, gun rights, and restrictions on abortion.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that most politicians at the federal, state, and local levels are members of one of the two major parties?
Dr. Cohen, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Now, there are third parties that are on the local ballot. And the following parties are the Libertarian Party, founded in 1971, values limited government and unregulated financial markets. The group also supports eliminating capital punishment, supports same-sex marriage, and gun ownership. The Independence Party was founded by Rochesterians Dr. Gordon Black, Tom Golisano, and Laureen Oliver in 1991. This party is focused on drawing independent voters, and their agenda is not clearly outlined. The Conservative Party, founded in 1962, rather than nominating its own candidates, the Conservative Party usually endorses the same candidates as the Republican Party and campaigns against the Democratic candidates. However, the party has withheld support from Republican candidates if it deems them too liberal. The Green Party, founded in 2001, promotes environmentalism, nonviolence, social justice, grassroots democracy, gender equality, LGBTQ rights, and they are also anti-war and anti-racism. SAM, also known as the Serve America movement, was founded in 2017. The party addresses income inequality, innovating healthcare, improving education. There's a focus on remaining fiscally responsible, promoting diversity, embracing free markets, and providing a simple and fair tax system. The Working Families Party in New York was founded in 1998. The party's major concerns are jobs, healthcare, raising the minimum wage, universal paid sick leave, the student debt crisis. They focus on higher taxes on the rich, public education, and energy and environmental reform. There is also the possibility for voters to write in a candidate of their choice who is not endorsed by any of the two major parties or the third political parties. You may find some major political party candidates listed on the ballot under more than one party. Those without a political party affiliation are independent, which means they have no affiliation with any of the parties described earlier. So why do we have political parties? Political parties help determine candidates for public office. These groups help citizens make sense of their choices given the values of each party and the issues that they endorse. And political parties can help influence policy. Thank you. Back to you, Dr. Cohen.
Okay, thank you. If Ms. Dickerson can just move to the next slide, and we have our 3 points that are listed there. So I'm hoping that people were able to take in that information and have a better understanding of each political party. Thank you, thank you. And this really was my very first time I've heard each political party explain, and I'm pretty sure people are appreciative of that. Now, moving to the offices and the candidates. Let me start with Mrs. Watson with the Monroe County Legislature.
A county legislator meets with other legislators to decide on making new laws, programs, projects, and funding that make life better for their fellow neighbors. Legislators get information about the needs and concerns of their neighbors by listening and talking to homeowners, renters, businessmen, businesswomen, employers, employees, union members, and veterans. Ideas or matters of county business are put into writing over the signature of the legislature.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, let's see who the candidates are.
The candidates for Monroe County Legislature are Calvin Lee and Chris Edis.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Now, next, we'll have Mrs. Melson talk about the Monroe County Clerk position and what service the office provides.
Yes, Dr. Cohen. The responsibility of the county clerk's office is vast.
Mm-hmm.
The clerk's office acts on behalf of the local, state, and federal governments. They oversee the operations of the DMV and are responsible for keeping records of deeds, marriage licenses, divorce records, and U.S. passports. The county clerk also issues permits for parades, pistols, and parties, as well as sporting licenses. Another major duty is that of receiving all nominations and petitions for elections and preparing the ballot. They also collect and maintain the voting machines and work with the Board of Elections to recruit and train poll workers for the elections.
Okay, wow, they do a lot. All right,
They do a lot.
Let's look at the candidates.
The candidates for the county clerk's office are Jamie Romeo and Carla Boyce.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Melson. New York State Senate, New York State Assembly. Dr. Harrison, would you please shed light on the difference between these two offices? We do know that the New York State Senate and the New York State Assembly are called houses, and they make up the New York State Legislature. So now, what else should we know about these two positions? You may have to unmute yourself, please. One more time, unmute yourself. There we go.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that. You know,
Okay.
Sometimes this technology just has its own mind. So the New York State Senate is the upper house of the New York State Legislature. It has 63 members and represents the 19 million citizens of New York State. Its purpose is to draft and approve changes to the laws of New York. And remember, the Senate alone has the power to confirm the governor's appointment of non-elected state officials and court judges. The candidates are in the 54th District, Shauna O'Toole and Pamela Helming. Next slide. In the 55th District, Shamara Baroque and Christopher Missick. Next slide. In the 56th District, Jeremy Cooney, David Mike Berry Jr., Sharita Trewick Johnson, and please note that she is a write-in candidate. Next slide. In the 59th District, Jason Klimick and Patrick Gallivan. Next slide. In the 61st District, Jacqueline Berger and Edward Rath III. Next slide. In the 62nd District, Robert Ort. Next slide. Now, let's talk about the New York State Assembly. The New York State Assembly is the lower house of the New York State Legislature. The responsibilities of the Assembly include passing bills on public policy, setting levels for state spending, raising and lowering taxes, and voting to uphold or override gubernatorial vetoes. It's also really important to know that the State Assembly acts as a check and balance to the State Senate. And of course, that's vice versa. Both of them act as check and balance for each other. No bill can pass without going through both the Assembly and the Senate. There are 7 seats open in the Assembly. The candidates are, in the 133rd District, Sharon Sattler LeBlanc and Marjorie Burns. Next slide. In the 134th District, we have Carolyn Carroll, Josh Jensen, Dylan Daylor, and Erica Jones. Next slide. We have in the 135th District, we have Jen Lunsford and Mark Johns. In the 136th District, we have Sarah Clark, Justin Wilcox, and Stephen Becker. And in the 137th District, we have Damon Meeks, and we have Ann C. Lewis, who is also a write-in. In the 138th District, we have Harry Bronson, and we have Peter Vasquez. Next slide. In the 139th District, we have Mark Gulagowski and Stephen Howley. Next slide. And
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Harris, and we appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, you may find this next explanation quite valuable. Judges. We see judges on television, in movies, and some of us see them in real life. We know they wear a robe and they sit slightly higher than everyone else, and they have a gavel. They determine outcomes in many cases, but do we really know the difference between city, county, surrogate, and even state supreme judges? Well, Ms. Francine Scott and then Dr. Ruth Scott would walk us through an explanation.
City court judges arrange felonies, process misdemeanors, civil lawsuits up to $15,000. They also preside over small claims for amounts up to $5,000 and handle landlord-tenant matters. County court judges, on the other hand, oversee the prosecution of crimes committed within the county and have limited jurisdiction in civil cases involving amounts up to $25,000.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. Now, let's talk about who the candidates are for these 2 judgeships.
Okay, so the candidate for the city court judge is Teresa Johnson, who is running unopposed. And the candidates for county court judge are Meredith Baca and Derek Harnsberger.
Okay, very good. Thank you again. Now, Dr. Ruth Scott, you're on for the surrogate and the state Supreme Court. And just make sure you unmute yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen.
You're welcome.
The surrogate court judges hear cases involving the affairs of people who have passed away. Those affairs include the probate of wills, the administration of estates, and they have jurisdiction in the adoption process. The state Supreme Court judges hear cases that are outside the jurisdiction of the lower courts. They may also hear criminal and civil action cases, except for the crimes against the state.
And the candidates are?
And the candidates are Christopher Chacho, Elena Carriola for surrogate court judge. Supreme Court Justice candidates, you choose 4 out of 7 candidates. Those 7 candidates are Gino Nitti, William Gargan, Julie Sianka, and Stephen Lindley. Dan Doyle, Vince D'Onofrio, and Sam Valerani.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Now, our last office to discuss is the U.S. House of Representatives. Ms. Tyson, I'd like to ask you to explain the role of this office. But first, allow me to say this. This office is pretty powerful and comes with a high level of authority. Okay, Ms. Tyson, tell us what else we should know about this office.
Sure, Dr. Cohen. The U.S. House of Representatives, like the Senate, has the sole authority to enact legislation and declare war, the right to confirm or reject many presidential appointments, and substantial investigative powers. The House has several powers assigned exclusively to it, including the power to initiate revenue bills, impeach federal officials, and elect the president in the case of an electoral college tie.
Thank you. Wow. Like I mentioned, pretty powerful. So we definitely want the right person or persons in this position, as well as the other positions. Now, who are the candidates?
For the 25th Legislative District, Joe Morelli, George Mitras, and Kevin Wilson. Next slide. For the 27th Legislative District, Nate McMurray, Chris Jacobs, and Dwayne Whitmer.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Tyson. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the highest office in the land. We know it as president. While we are very aware that we have a candidate running on the Democratic ticket and a candidate running on the Republican ticket, we also have candidates running for office of president under other political parties. Let's take a look. Next slide. Of course, Joseph R. Biden, his running mate is Kamala Harris. Donald J. Trump, his running mate, Michael R. Pence. For the Green Party, Howie Hawkins, running mate, Angela Nicole Walker. For the Libertarian Party, Joe Jorgensen and running mate, Jeremy Cohen. Independents, Brock Pierce, Carla Ballard. And wow, that concludes it. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of our Delta Talk segment. We'd like to thank you for tuning in with us. And it is our hope that you have, if you haven't voted yet, that you will do so either by ballot, early vote, or on election day, which is November 3rd. This slide and the next slide will give you voting dates and deadlines and how to connect with the Board of Election for questions you may have. Thank you again for tuning in with us.